السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن اهتدى بهديه واقتدى بسنته إلى يوم الدين وبعد. Last week we spoke to you about Emancipation Day. That was just a few days ago, and it's something that's national, it's something that's celebrated. So let us mix what we discussed, what we began discussing last week, with a very great important event that took place in the history of Islam, a very sad, rather a tragic event that took place in the history of Islam yesterday, according to the lunar calendar. On the 27th of the month of Dhul Hijjah, Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu was stabbed. Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu was stabbed 6 times in the back, physically, by a man by the name of Abu Lu'lu Feroz. Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu's khilafah, his reign, which lasted 10 years, 6 months, and a few days, was one of the greatest. It is still considered the golden era of Islam, the time that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam missioned as a prophet in this world. And then after this, the short-lived khilafah reign of Abu Bakr as-Siddique radiallahu anhu, and then this term of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu. These were very great days. Yes, there was very great hurdles and obstacles in the way of the believers establishing the deen, so that the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would be held in triumph and in great honor and in great regard and respect. There were many obstacles, namely during the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. There were very, very great obstacles. These were challenges that were faced by Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and the Muslim Ummah, all of which with an iron fist Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, tackled. And then comes the khilafah of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu. It's a khilafah during which 2.2 billion square miles of the then known world comes under his rule. Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, I'm very sorry to say this, we do not know who our leaders were. We do not know, we have very little information regarding our heroes. These are champions, not the people that we see on social media today. Yes, there may be some people that have accomplished something. Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu is the second greatest individual that the sun has risen on from the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. His love for Allah, his loyalty to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, his dedication and devotion to the deen, all there. But apart from this, the establishment of so many things that ceased to exist up until his time, whether it's the Baytul Mal, the public treasury, whether it's the growing of Masjid al-Nabawi alayhi salatu wasalam in Medina, Masjid al-Haram in Mecca, whether it's the establishing of so many towns and cities that did not exist up until his time, whether it was the prisons, whether it was the police forces, whether it was, enforcing the armies. Up until then, the Muslim army was not as great as it was made by Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu. And wallahi, the list goes on of what Allah blessed Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu with in terms of helping the deen. When Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam made that dua, the eve of his accepting Islam, he said, "Oh Allah, strengthen Islam with Amr ibn Hisham or Umar bin Khattab." So when anybody else accepted Islam, they became strengthened. They were honored. When Umar accepted Islam, Islam was strengthened. And this dua of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would continue to manifest itself until the day Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu left this world. Now, Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu's death and slavery, how did the two of these go together? What did Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu do for slavery? I mentioned last week when the time ran out, just then, that Islam came to teach people how to deal with their slaves. People, the world economy at that time, not now, at that time, literally ran on slavery. So at a time like that, when the world is also filled with darkness, gloom, people, practices are barbaric, they are backwards, uncivilized. Allah blesses the world with Islam. And like Sahaba used to say, لَوْلَا اللَّهُ مَهْتَدَيْنَا لَا تَصَدَّقْنَا وَلَا صَلَّيْنَا. If Allah didn't guide us, we would never have performed a single salat, never have given a little bit of charity. Islam came to honor the world, to take the world out of its darkness and bring it to light, to take the world that was backwards and uncivilized and bring it right. There's a book that is titled ماذا خسر العالم بانحطاط المسلمين. What loss the world incurred by the decline and the downfall of the Muslims. Unfortunately, we have them introduce concepts to us today. They're the ones with the new this and science and technology, and they're about to make it to not just the moon, they're making interplanetary travel is about to become something. Hold on a minute. When the Muslims started to go down, the whole world started to incur loss. This is what happened in history. These are facts. Nevertheless, Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, when he saw that this is how the slaves were being treated before Islam, this is how the slaves were being traded in Arabia, and naturally, because so many of the greats, those whose names we mentioned in very brief descriptions last Friday, the Bilal bin Rabah, the Khabbab ibn al-Arat, the Ammar bin Yasir, the Sumayya radiallahu anh, the Zunayra radiallahu anh, and so many others. Abu Bakr radiallahu anh had freed so many of them as well. These were people who were the first comers into Islam. These are as-sabiqun al-awwaluna min al-muhajirin. These individuals whose names we've taken out. So those who are not just any ordinary class of people, they were slaves raised to such lofty statuses. This is something that perplexed the minds of the Quraysh. How do people of no status in society whatsoever become these great leaders all of a sudden? They come to us with a message. They want us to listen to them. This is also one of the reasons why the Quraysh couldn't stand the fact that this Islam is a huge threat to our slavery. We make money off this. We live off this. Our economy is this. So Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu only added to the rights that Allah and the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam had given to the slaves. He would only do this. And there are numerous examples of this. One, those during the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu's Ridda wars, the apostasy wars, there were so many slaves that were captured. Umar bin Khattab, and in case we don't know about this, 11 armies that were dispatched by Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu to bring Islam back. People had left the fold of Islam. People had refused to give zakah. People had refused to pray 5 times salah. As Rasulullah ﷺ left this world, people had started to accept the claim of false prophets. These aren't small problems. Somebody stands up today and you'll tell them sit down. These were people that just stood up and sat down. These were people that had 40,000 followers, not on Facebook. They had 40,000 followers leave the fold of Islam and join their groups. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu had to face this. These were challenges that were faced by Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Nevertheless, Allah blessed Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. We always mention the greats, the victories, the glory of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu's reign. Had it not been for Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, this ummah was gone. This entire ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nevertheless, so Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, during his time, we have all of these people that are taken in captive. They're captured, they're captives, they're slaves. Umar radiallahu anhu comes along, sets every single one of them free. Every single one of these individuals was set free by Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu. Yes, Allah had given him that understanding. Yes, Allah had given him that farsightedness. Yes, there are 18 different places in the Holy Quran where Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu has given his opinion to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in regards to certain matters. And Allah preferred the opinion of Umar radiallahu anhu and revealed verses in the Holy Quran regarding the same. Those women who were slaves and they bore children to their masters, Umar radiallahu anhu had ordered that the child of such a woman who was a slave, but the child that is born to this woman and her master will be emancipated. These are practices that were completely unheard of before the time of Umar radiallahu anhu. Next, a contract, a deal that existed not before Umar radiallahu anhu's time. Umar radiallahu anhu came in and introduced the concept of such a contract that could be made between a slave and his master. What is it? That if a slave wishes to work his way out of his slavery for his freedom, he is allowed to do so. He is free to do so. Before the time of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, there was absolutely nothing like this. If he wanted to, it was up to the master to decide. If the master chooses, no, you're going to continue to slave yourself for me, he would continue. But if now Umar radiallahu anhu comes and somebody complains to him, Anas had a slave by the name of Sirin. Sirin requested his master Anas to be freed after he would work, after he would pay himself out of the slavery. Anas refused, but the customs have changed. This is the time of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu. This is the golden era of Islam. This is a time when the world is filled with darkness. Allah has sent his men to fill the world with light. Umar radiallahu anhu says, I'm sorry Anas, this is not up to you anymore. He made you this offer, you can't refuse. If he wishes, if he chooses to work himself out of this slavery, he is allowed to do so. You must accept and honor his proposal. Umar radiallahu anhu had ordered that the stipends, that the allowance, kind of like the benefits that we get here in this time. And by the way, had it not been for Umar radiallahu anhu, all of these benefits that they came up with in the last, not just now in the year and a half that we've been in this pandemic, this goes back to Allah Ta'ala knows how long. One of the first to introduce something of this concept to the world was the great Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu. Nevertheless, now coming back in reference to the slaves, Umar radiallahu anhu had ordered that the same amount, the same stipend that was issued to a non-slave, a freed man, is the same amount that would be issued to the slave also. Thanks to Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu. What else? Umar radiallahu anhu had ordered that the slaves, when they are taken and held as captives, when they are captured, when they fall into the lot of the Muslims as captured enemy assets, as spoils of war, they are not to be separated from their kindred. Allahu Akbar. They are not to be separated. If there are two brothers that have been captured by the Muslims, they shall both be under the care of one master alone. They shall not be separated and given to two separate masters. No. Whether it's a mother and her child, whether it's a brother and a brother, or a brother and a sister, whoever it may be, anybody with an immediate connection, relationship with another one of their kin will be kept together under the slavery of one master. Umar radiallahu anhu had also ordered that when the daughters of those who were elite, whether it was in Babylon, when the Emperor Heraclius, when his daughter fell as a slave into the possession of the Muslims, Umar radiallahu anhu said, this woman will be returned to her father. He honored those who were the daughters or the children of people who were of status. When the daughter of Muqawqis, Armanusa, when she fell, the then emperor of Egypt, the leader of Egypt, when his daughter fell into the possession of the Muslims as captured enemy assets, rightfully theirs, no. Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu had issued an order that she too would be given to her father without any ransom. Yes, another order in place that yes, they could be ransomed. They were ransomed and they were returned to their fathers. Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu had ordered that the masters would sit on the same meal with their slaves. These are things I don't think we understand, but in 2021 they might not seem to make sense to us. Introducing something like this to the world where a concept of this nature is completely alien. You have a master and you have a slave sitting on the same dastarkhan, the same table, the same meal. And he was so stern about this. Umar radiallahu anhu said, may the curse of Allah be on that individual who is shy, who is embarrassed to sit on a meal with his slave. May Allah's curse be on that individual. Now, when we said last week that Islam came to teach the world how to take care of these slaves, this was only an example of Umar radiallahu anhu's reign. And Umar radiallahu anhu ordered that the protection that is offered by the slave is to be honored equally like the protection that is offered by a freed man. So if a slave comes along and he says, this person is mine, he is in my custody, he is under my protection. This is something that was prevalent at the time. It was a custom amongst the Arabs. When somebody took you as theirs, there is absolutely no harm, injustice, there is no oppression that is meted out to you. As much as the people of that individual who has taken you, your guardian, under their wing, in their custody, their protection, they may not like you, they may not favor you, they may be hostile and they have enmity towards you, but as soon as you've been granted that protection, you are now safe. There are numerous incidents of this in the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. Umar radiallahu anhu ordered that when a slave comes along and says, he's under my protection, this will be honored just as much as when a freed individual comes along and says exactly the same. And finally, raise their statuses. Last week we spoke about those who were the greatest of this ummah, the Bilals, the Khabbabs, the Ummars, the Sumayyas, the Yasirs. Umar radiallahu anhu continued this. Islam honored those slaves. Umar radiallahu anhu continued to honor these slaves. If you've ever heard of the name Ikrimah, Ikrimah is a giant scholar in the field of the science of hadith. One of the greatest, Ikrimah rahimahullah. He was honored by Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu. Went from being a slave to one of the greatest scholars of hadith. Nafi', for those of us who know, the golden chain of Imam Malik rahimahullah runs through Nafi'. Malik and Nafi' and Ibn Umar and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. When Imam Malik narrates from his golden chain, he's narrating from Nafi'. Nafi' narrates from Abdullah bin Umar radiyallahu anhuma. And who narrates from? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. That same Nafi' that belongs to this golden chain of narrators of Imam Malik was a slave. But Islam came, and where these people went. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us, this is my call. May Allah give us the ability to appreciate Islam. That's what it is, to honor this Islam that came and honored the entire world. الحمد لله علي الذات عظيم الصفات سمي السمات كبير الشان جليل القدر رفيع الذكر مطاع الأمر جلي البرهان فخيم الاسم غزير العلم وسيع الحلم كثير الغفران جميل الثناء جزيل العطاء مجيب الدعاء عميم الإحسان سريع الحساب شديد العقاب أليم العذاب عزيز السلطان ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد يا أيها الناس وحدوا الله فإن التوحيد رأس الطاعات واتقوا الله فإن التقوى ملاك الحسنات وعليكم بالسنة فإن السنة تهدي إلى الإطاعة ومن أطاع الله ورسوله فقد رشد واهتدى وإياكم والبدعة فإن البدعة تهدي إلى المعصية ومن يعص الله ورسوله فقد ضل وغوى وعليكم بالصدق فإن الصدق ينجي والكذب يهلك وعليكم بالإحسان فإن الله يحب المحسنين ولا تحب الدنيا فتكون من الخاسرين ألا وإن نفسا لن تموت حتى تستكمل رزقها فاتقوا الله وأجملوا في الطلب وتوكلوا عليه فإن الله يحب المتوكلين واستغفروه يمددكم بأموال وبنين أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وقال ربكم ادعوني يستجب لكم إن الذين يستكبرون عن عبادتي سيدخلون جهنم داخرين بارك الله لنا ولكم في القرآن العظيم ونفعني وإياكم بما فيه من الآيات والذكر الحكيم أقول ما تسمعون وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستهديه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه، ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له، ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالحق بشيرا ونذيرا بين يدي الساعة. من يطع الله ورسوله فقد رشد، ومن يعص الله ورسوله فإنه لا يضر إلا نفسه ولا يضر الله شيئا. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم أمطر شآبيب رضوانك على السابقين الأولين من المهاجرين والأنصار، خصوصا على أبي بكر الصديق صاحب رسول الله في الغار، وعلى عمر الفاروق قامع أساس الكفار، وعلى عثمان ذي النورين كامل الحياء والوقار، وعلى علي المرتضى أسد الله الجبار، وعلى الإمامين الهمامين السعيدين الشهيدين أبي محمد الحسن وأبي عبد الله الحسين، وعلى أمهما سيدة النساء فاطمة الزهراء رضي الله عنها، وعلى عميه الشريفين المطهرين من الأدناس حمزة والعباس رضي الله عنهما، وعلى الستة الباقية من العشرة المبشرة، وعلى سائر الصحابة والتابعين رضوان الله تعالى عليهم وعن كل الصحابة أجمعين. اللهم أيد الإسلام والمسلمين، اللهم انصر الإسلام وأنصاره، وأذل الشرك وأشراره. اللهم انصر من نصر دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم واجعلنا منهم، واخذل من خذل دين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم ولا تجعلنا منهم ولا معهم. اللهم اجعل بلاد المسلمين آمنة مطمئنين من كل البليات والآفات. ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان، ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم. آمين يا رب العالمين. عباد الله رحمكم الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي، يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. فاذكروني يذكركم واشكروا لي ولا تكفرون.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. يسبح لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض الملك القدوس العزيز الحكيم. هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين. وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم. ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. مثل الذين حملوا التوراة ثم لم يحملوها كمثل الحمار يحمل أسفارا بئس مثل القوم الذين كذبوا بآيات الله والله لا يهدي القوم الظالمين. قل يا أيها الذين هادوا إن زعمتم أنكم أولياء لله من دون الناس فتمنوا الموت إن كنتم صادقين ولا يتمنونه أبدا بما قدمت أيديهم والله عليم بالظالمين. قل إن الموت الذي تفرون منه فإنه ملاقيكم ثم تردون إلى عالم الغيب والشهادة فينبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا نودي للصلاة من يوم الجمعة فاسعوا إلى ذكر الله وذروا البيع ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. فإذا قضيت الصلاة فانتشروا في الأرض وابتغوا من فضل الله واذكروا الله كثيرا لعلكم تفلحون. وإذا رأوا تجارة أو لهوا انفضوا إليها وتركوك قائما قل ما عند الله خير من اللهو ومن التجارة والله خير الرازقين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. استغفر الله. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام تبارك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. اللهم ربنا قنا عذابك يوم تبعث من عبادك. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له